Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope your week is going well. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Please hit the notification bell so you know when new videos are uploaded. Thank you for your thumbs up, your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. A special shout out to those who made suggestions about videos you'd like to hear discussed. If you would like to hear a topic discussed, please let me know in the comments section or email me at ladyboulay8596@aol.com. Today I am pleased to review the book Our Kind of People by Otis Graham. A subscriber or viewer asked if I review it, and I'm happy to do it. I did read the book when it first came out in 2000, and it created quite a buzz. He goes into very deep details about discussing the class differences within the African American community. Or maybe I should say that he goes into deep details in describing the black upper class and telling how they are different from the rest of the black community. This is a nonfiction book. All of the information is based on facts, real events, and real people. That is probably the best feature of the book. He is not relying on past information. He's speaking from his own personal experience as an upper class black man who was brought up in an upper class black family. This book was and is an Amazon bestseller. Amazon lists it in 3 categories: sociology of class, African American demographic studies, and United States history. It's all of that, and it is the most comprehensive book of the black upper class that I've seen. Otis Graham spent 6 years researching the book, and he did a good job. He went north, south, east, and west, interviewing and conversing with a multitude of people, and that is what adds credibility to the book. The book was published by Harper Perennial, one of the major publishing houses, and the idea of a black upper class came as a surprise to many. So this book was a game changer in terms of how Americans viewed black Americans in our totality, because Otis Graham made clear in the book that a class system has always existed among African Americans, beginning with the enslaved. He also did a good job of educating the public to the fact that America's fondness for portraying all black people as a poor, desperate underclass was incorrect. So let's get into the book. There are 16 chapters in this book. The theme of this book is to be accepted in the black middle class. You have to be light-skinned, and it's better if you're lighter than a brown paper bag. You need straight or curly straight hair, have defined European features, and you should be from an educated background or one in which your foreparents succeeded in business. The further back you can go in your family's history, where you were free, where somebody went to college or established a successful business, the easier it is for you to fit into the black upper class. The colleges your parents and grandparents attended, the church they belonged to, and the neighborhood they lived in all determined your level of acceptance into this group of people. So according to Otis Graham, to be accepted into the black upper class from about 1870 to some unspecified date in the future, a woman, a black woman, should have light skin and long, straight blonde hair, a prominent nose with a narrow bridge, blue, green, or gray eyes. Her family should have belonged to Jack and Jill since she was 2 years old. She should attend a private prep school, one of the old established private schools for black girls, or Brearley in New York City. And this is an expensive private school for girls. She should be introduced to society at a debutante ball at the appropriate age. For college, she should attend Howard, Spelman, Fisk, or some Ivy League white college like Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, and she should belong to either Alpha Kappa Alpha or Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and she should be a legacy, meaning her mother and grandmother should have pledged in college. For black men, the same should apply. Light eyes. His family should have belonged to Jack and Jill since he was 2 years old. He should have attended a private prep school or one of the old established private schools for black boys or some other private rich boy school. He should be an escort at a debutante ball, learning how to bow, waltz, and behave like a gentleman. For college, he should have attended Howard, Morehouse, Fisk, or some Ivy League white college like Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. And he should belong to either Alpha Phi Alpha, Kappa Alpha Psi, or Omega Psi Phi fraternity. And he should also be a legacy, meaning that his father and grandfather should have pledged in college. So these are the standards that somebody set for the black upper class. It's possible that I missed something, but you get the idea. At the beginning of the book, he introduces us to Reginald Lewis, the first black billionaire in America. Reginald Lewis was a corporate lawyer and the CEO of a private equity firm that bought and restructured companies that were on the decline, and he turned them into successful money makers. And that is how he gained his fortune. Lawrence Otis Graham befriended Mr. Lewis when he was a student at Harvard. Years later, when Otis Graham was working in New York, Mr. Lewis confided that he'd made a fortune. He had 2 daughters. They were privy to private schools and the rich Upper East Side life in Manhattan, but he didn't want them to grow away from their black heritage. Now, Mr. Lewis had married a non-black woman. I guess he didn't think about that when he was choosing a wife. But now, when the daughters were preteens, he wanted them to be in touch with their black heritage. Lawrence Otis Graham was able to introduce Mr. Lewis to the black elite, the organizations and activities that he should introduce to his children. I mentioned Mr. Lewis because although he was extremely wealthy, he did not possess the 3 isms of the black upper class. He wasn't light-skinned, he didn't have European features, and he didn't come from an educated or wealthy background. He built his empire from the ground up, but he wanted his daughters to be accepted into this exclusive group of black people. Unfortunately, Mr. Lewis died in 1993, but his wife and daughters are active in the charity world and in the world of philanthropy. He takes us back to the origin of the class system with African Americans. During slavery, the enslaved people were separated by occupation. We know about the house servants and the field servants. Female house servants were taken sexual advantage of by the enslavers, and they bore them children. This is where the light-skinned caste comes from, and they made up the core of the black upper class. From this class also came many of the free blacks because the enslavers set their children free by the slave women. These free blacks were able to work and make money. They were also able to buy property. In time, they began to build businesses and become prosperous. So they were able to get ahead of the enslaved people. When slavery ended, these free blacks were more established and better positioned than those just coming out of slavery. So this is the look that branded the black upper class. And while some might take issue with this or question why these people are supposed to be black, Lawrence Otis Graham does not question it. He says, while some outsiders, both black and white, dismissed our black upper class traditions as bourgeois or as being solely white aspirations, members of the black elite still feel that there is nothing odd or inappropriate about the fact that they have created traditions that include a specific summer camp for black elite kids, a specific boarding school for students of old guard families, specific social clubs, specific summer resorts, specific family taboos, passing for white, putting down blacks in front of whites, specific colleges, fraternities, churches, attitudes about whites, emulate them but don't marry them, specific neighborhoods or streets within certain cities, specific suburbs, and even specific funeral homes and cemeteries in which to be memorialized. Chapters 2 and 3 talk about bringing up elite black children. I've already discussed that long list of things that they have to do in order to be accepted. Chapters 4 through 8 talk about the colleges, the fraternities, the churches, the social clubs that they have to belong to. And then they talk about their vacation spots, their favorite vacation spots. Oak Bluffs in Martha's Vineyard seems to be the favorite. Then Sag Harbor, New York, Highland Beach in Maryland, and Idlewild in Michigan. There are some lesser vacation spots that they do frequent, but these seem to be the most popular. Chapters 9 through 15 list cities in which there's a large population of black elites. Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York City, Memphis, Detroit, Atlanta, Nashville, New Orleans, Tuskegee, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia. These are the cities with the largest population of black elites. Most of these are cities in which there are private HBCUs, and this class of black elites went to these colleges. They stayed in those cities and built their lives around the colleges and universities, sometimes as college professors, but also as doctors, dentists, pharmacists, lawyers, and businessmen. So they stayed where they went to school. Chapter 16 is the last chapter, and it's entitled Passing for White When the Brown Paper Bag Test Isn't Enough, and he gives tips for those who are white enough to pass. So anybody that's interested in passing for white really needs to read this chapter. So here's my opinion of the book. This book was well researched and well written. He took time, he talked to people, he did an excellent job of researching and writing this book. He was proud to be part of the black upper class. He was a lawyer, a writer, and he spoke often on the African American class system. This book speaks to the deep desire that so many black people have to separate from each other, whether by skin tone, education, or money. Some of this is natural and necessary, but it's not something that needs to be proudly publicized, as some of the people tried to tell Mr. Graham. It's good to have the resources you need to live a comfortable life and afford your children with a good home, education, and security. But Mr. Graham he takes it to an uncomfortable point. You can't overdo this. And it was just like he was obsessed not only with the idea of making money and having degrees from certain institutions, but he embraced the three evil isms of the African American community: colorism, featureism, and classism. And for all that he goes on about Jack and Jill and the right colleges and fraternities and sororities and so forth, when a grassroots person made a bunch of money, as Madam C.J. Walker did, who didn't go to any college or belong to any sorority, they embraced her, and they embraced her children because her daughter and her granddaughter, because they had money. They had long money. They had more money than that so-called black upper class. So they embraced the people who had the real money. And he has a photograph of Madame C.J. Walker's New York home in the book, as if she was a part of the group. So there's a bit of hypocrisy there. I found the book to be a bit overdone. He assigns importance to people based on their skin tone, education, and affiliation in organizations. He speaks about his grandmother, who was light-skinned, scolding him and his brother for playing in the sun because they were already too dark. And he also says he was never an escort at a debutante ball because he was too dark. Well, he wouldn't be now, because they are still having those debutante balls. And in some of these cities, they can barely get enough boys of any complexion to cooperate escorting these girls to those debutante balls. And the girls sometimes already have boyfriends, and they can't get them to come because they don't see that as being the cool thing to do these days. It appeared to me that Mr. Graham really wanted to be light-skinned. He admitted to having his nose done to look more, to make it straighter, and to, basically taking away the African-y look. There was one scene in the book that I really didn't like. He talked about going to a different campus, college campus, where his girlfriend was attending. This was a predominantly white campus, an Ivy League campus, so the black kids usually do group together on those campuses. But anyway, they had a dance and he was there, and he was talking about the Jack and Jill kids, and the light-skinned, beautiful girls with the long hair were in the center of the room, and they were just the center of attention, running things, you see. And then they had these dark-skinned kids on the peripheral, looking on like they wanted to be a part of it. And he described the girls as being dark-skinned with bad weaves and suggested that they were poor. That was something that just really rubbed me the wrong way, because he's still reinforcing what we've been trying to get past in our communities. That is colorism, featureism, and classism. By the end of the book, I must admit, I was exhausted reading about what started to sound like a bunch of pretentious nonsense. These are wannabe white black people mimicking white people and thinking that it is okay to look down on working class and poor black people. Having said that, Our Kind of People is a significant book because it does give a different view of class within the black community, and he gives credit to African Americans who've defied the odds and become successful and relevant in the greater American society. This book also gives a historical context to the African American journey and experience. Now, the irony of this is that Mr. Graham makes a big deal over the black upper class when these people don't even have the most money. They don't have the most money, they don't have the most influence, and hardly anybody listens to them anymore. We don't have a Booker T. Washington who's really doing something that people can see what he's doing, and so they respect and look up to him. We don't have that anymore. So this class of people has rendered themselves useless to the black community, because people that went to Tennessee State, Alabama A&M, South Carolina State have surpassed them. Not to mention brilliant African Americans who may have come out of poor communities and neighborhoods and went to white universities and are running circles around this so-called black middle class. For instance, Michelle Obama. How about that? So I do recommend the book, though. I recommend this book for anybody that's interested in the black upper class, anybody that wants to have some kind of a history or give some kind of context to African Americans from the beginning in the United States, because people do tend to be fond of thinking of us as just, they were just those slaves. But those people were brilliant, and their brilliance continues to be seen in their descendants. So I think it's a relevant book, and I think that things have changed in the black community as well as in America as a whole. But a lot of this information is relevant. Some of it is not, but a lot of it is. And last, a tribute to Mr. Lawrence Otis Graham. Mr. Lawrence Otis Graham passed away this year, February 19th, 2021. He was 59 years old, and he passed away in Chappaqua, which is in Westchester County, New York, which is a wealthy suburb about 30 miles north of New York City. He is survived by his wife and 3 children. So rest in peace, Mr. Lawrence Otis Graham.